What's going on, everybody? Week 2 of MLS action is in the books. I refuse to call it Week 3 as it's being called on MLSsoccer.com right now because they called Week 1 the Miami RSL game and that was it, and then Week 2 was last weekend. I refuse to comply by those rules. I'm calling this week Week 2. There's 2 match days in the books for MLS. We got a lot going on this weekend. The LA Galaxy might be back. Inter Miami is definitely back, but they also never left. We've got stock up, stock down, and oh yeah, we got a snow game. Let's get into it now. MLS 5 side number 1. Joseph Pancil is as advertised. Does this mean the LA Galaxy are back? After 2 matches this season, one at home to Inter Miami and one on the road to San Jose Earthquakes, the LA Galaxy have 4 points, a win and a draw. It should be 6 points, but they blew it at the end against Miami. They ripped San Jose this weekend 3-1, and it really wasn't that close. It was over early. It was 2-0 at halftime, and then the Galaxy added a third in the 48th minute. Pancil was an absolute menace. He's the takeaway for this game. He has adapted to the Galaxy and MLS immediately. He fits this team as perfectly as kind of we thought, hoped, or was advertised and as scouted. What's more is that shout out to Greg Vanney for being a little bit more pragmatic this season and playing to Pancil's strengths. I'm going to pull up the heat map right now. Look at how far forward Joseph Pancil is. Like, they're giving more space to run in behind. They're not being as kind of methodical and prodding with possession. And that's giving Ricky Pooch plenty of opportunity to drop in, get the ball, play through balls, get more space between the lines, with Pancil making the defense drop off and having to honor his pace. And shout out to Jeff Ruder for these numbers. He's got 13 carries of 10 plus yards. That's only 4 behind league leader Lionel Messi, and he's played 121 fewer minutes than Messi has. Greg Vanney after the game said he's a whole new threat or game changer that we haven't seen or had. And Pancil himself is talking the talk. If we keep playing like this, we're going to kill a lot of clubs. A lot of clubs. Trust me. That sounds like a man who's confident. He scored his first goal this weekend. He also had his first assist. In his debut, he won a penalty against Miami. He's been absolutely dangerous. I wasn't really ever worried about the attack, and again, that's because I really rated the Pancil signing, and Gabriel Peck has looked good in his limited minutes. He hasn't started yet, but I think that the Brazilian U23 winger is going to be as good as advertised as well, but again, time will tell. This attack makes a ton of sense. Dejan Joveljic is looking good again. Just a league average forward with these 3 behind him would score 15 goals. And he looks like he's going to have a bunch of goal contributions this year. Mark Delgado has been awesome. Gaston Brugman, Edwin Cerrillo as the defensive midfielder has been really good as well. Again, they've been much more pragmatic. They've been much more worried about rest defense, so they haven't been getting countered as much. Mickey Amane has been an awesome signing so far after 2 games as well. This offseason is looking absolutely elite for the Galaxy. Are they back? I think that they are. Again, 2 games in, it's a small sample size. It's too early to make these declarations, right? But everything I've seen and everything kind of I've thought about this team in the offseason has been confirmed over 180 minutes. Again, we'll see how this ages. The schedule will get tough. But the biggest worry is that the starting center back pairing was 71 years old. I will say that Martin Kacowicz and Maya Yoshida, I really like them as a pairing. And I will add that Jalen Neal, who's injured right now, 20 years old, he'll be playing a lot of minutes. So they have that. They can't really afford another injury to the central defense. Those 3 are kind of their starting level options. But that's kind of the case for all teams. While you should be worried about the age of those 2 center backs, look at the age of the rest of the squad. These are probably the main players who are going to get the bulk of the minutes this year. Look at how much bright green there is. How many players are entering their prime or in their prime. Gaston Brugman at 31, I gave him a dark green because he could go either way this season. I think that he's still firmly in his prime, but he had injury issues last year. I think he's going to be fine. Look at that. Mickey Amane, Mark Delgado, Ricky Pooch, Gabriel Peck, Joseph Pancil, Dejan Joveljic. All those players are firmly in their prime. Julian Aude is a rising player at left back, and they have John Nelson as the backup. This team is really balanced and really well built. I have high expectations for the Galaxy in 2024. MLS 5 aside number 2. Inter Miami domination, but whoo boy, Orlando City were shocking. Inter Miami dismantled rivals Orlando City 5-0 this weekend. Gressel had 2 assists, he cooked. Suarez had 2 goals, 2 assists, he cooked. Lionel Messi scored 2 goals. It was a complete domination. You could just Google thesaurus, whatever, any synonym for dominance, and that fits for this game. Miami just completely outran Orlando. Orlando never looked like they were going to get in the game. It was 3-0 after 30 minutes, and at that point, it was like, oh boy, how bad is this going to be, rather than maybe Orlando could pull one back. Miami looked phenomenal with 6 days rest, which would be the first time they've had that this season. They're not going to get that a ton just because they've got CONCACAF Champions Cup coming up this week, and they expect to be on a long run in that competition. And then obviously midweek games during the season, Leagues Cup, everything else. It'll be a rarity where they have a full week off, but my God, if this is what they look like when they're rotated properly and rested properly, watch out to the rest of the league. One point that's going to sound really dumb, but I promise I think that you'll follow me along the way. It's not always so easy playing with the best player in the world in Lionel Messi. It's easy in the sense that he could bail you out at any point. You can rip it at his shin. He's going to bring it down, beat two players. You can get a lot of cheap assists by rolling the ball to Messi and letting him cook. But playing with that player comes a lot of responsibility. You don't play instinctually. You play kind of like, oh man, let me get the ball, stop, where's Messi? Where's Suarez? Where's Busquets? Where's Alba? You're not playing within the flow of the game, particularly when things get difficult. You want the security blanket. You want to give Messi the ball in particular. You want to give the ball to those Barcelona guys because they have so much quality and because they are the leaders of this team, everything else. But then you're kind of playing outside of your game. I think that we really saw that in their first two games. I'm going to highlight again Julian Gressel because I think that there was no better difference in how much more fluid it looked this week than in previous. I noticed in the first two games, there was a lot of times where Gressel would get the ball in the midfield and kind of put his foot on it and immediately kind of turn towards Messi. And again, that's a great plan. I like, when in doubt, pass the ball to Lionel Messi. Has worked for a lot of players and a lot of teams. But I will say, against Orlando, he didn't seem to be doing that. The rest of the team didn't seem to be quite doing that to a detrimental level. Gressel was really good. A lot of times he took touches forward, he took touches into space, and that helped get the ball to Messi and Suarez because it wasn't being forced. The defense knows that Messi, Suarez, all these guys want to get on the ball and you want to pass them the ball. That makes it a little bit more difficult. So, again, Miami flowed really well. I really like how they look this week. Let's see how it ages. Champions Cup, again, I know that they have a ton of emphasis on that competition. They play Nashville this week. As I reported on this channel, on Twitter, on The Athletic, everything else, they're trading DeAndre Yedlin to FC Cincinnati. I'm going to pull up the heat map here. They're going to need somebody to man the right flank like Yedlin does. Look at how much space is on the right side of the field. He gets up and down end line to end line. He's not as good in the attack as, say, Gressel or Alba is. But with Alba going forward on the other side, like the balance here with Yedlin and Alba, Gressel's probably going to be the right back in the interim. You don't, the best use of Julian Gressel in that position is to play like a wingback. But it's also the best use of Jordi Alba, obviously, to play as a wingback on the other side. If both wingbacks are flying forward, that team's going to be really susceptible in transition, particularly when Sergio Busquets is normally going to be the deepest lying central midfielder, and he doesn't cover ground very well. So I'm curious to see where they go. I'm assuming that they're going to add a right back, but that's something to watch in the interim. I can't wait for Federico Redondo to debut as well. Maybe he'll anchor a little bit better, a little bit different. We'll see. On Orlando, they were so bad. I think that's the worst I've ever seen from Orlando under Oscar Brea. Nobody was good for this team, but Rodrigo Schlegel was particularly shocking. The midfield pivot was terrible. The attack was ineffective. Oscar Brea kind of summed it up in the post-game press conference. That didn't look like us. Yeah, that's about all you can say. On my end, bad week for my Orlando City Supporter Shield winners take. And we'll see how that one ages, but no rest for the weary. Orlando have Tigres in the CONCACAF Champions Cup this week, so good luck. MLS 5-a-side number 3. We got a snow game here in March. Real Salt Lake beat LAFC 3-0 in the snow. Andres Gomez was awesome. 2 goals. Chicho Arango scored the third. But, of course, the story of this game was the snow and the post-game quotes from Steve Cherundolo, LAFC head coach. I'm just going to pull up a couple of these and read them because they deserve to be read in full. Steve Cherundolo, quote, "It was an absolute joke we had to play today. It was one of the worst professional sporting events I've ever seen in my life. I feel terrible for the players that we put them through this. The game could have and should have been called off. In my opinion, it was an absolute disgrace that we had to play." Pablo Mascherano, Real Salt Lake head coach, said that he had a conversation with Steve Cherundolo and the referee before the game. The snow wasn't accumulated really at all. They delayed kickoff by 2 hours because of the weather. Then they played for 4 minutes and they had to delay for another hour because of a lightning strike. And then from there on out, it was all snow, and it got worse and worse and worse. Pablo Mascherano pretty much said that, if we called it off before the game or postponed it, I would have been fine with that. But he's like, once you start it, I think the direct quote was well, let's just kind of get this over with. And that's kind of where I'm at. Once you start the game in this, again, it sucks. I get it. Poor 18-year-old Venezuelan wonder kid David Martinez made his debut in this weather. Look at my man. This is just an iconic game. I can't imagine that his dream of debuting for LAFC, making this big move to MLS. I don't think that this is what he had in store for his debut. Some people in his life where his agent was at the stadium. Again, what a what a moment to remember. He won't forget it. You can't take anything from his performance or many of the other performances, to be fair. Another quote from Cherundolo. I just don't understand why on earth we'd count a game like that, to finish a game like that, or even play a game like that. Look, he like, on my like super serious note, I get it. It's obviously not ideal playing conditions. You worry about the players. Cherundolo kept saying in his press conference, like, the only positive is nobody got hurt. Thank God nobody got hurt, et cetera, et cetera. It's hard to disagree with that, and I agree. Again, I was speaking to executives at other clubs on Saturday who were like, yeah, like we felt the same. Like, if we were in their situation, we wouldn't have been happy about it as well. Like, we can't believe that game continued to play, all of that. As a fan, it is fun to watch these games. Like, counterpoint, shout out to these dudes. Dudes rock. What a scene in Sandy, Utah. Again, I will say, not counting the game, whatever, that is obviously too far. Like, again, Real Salt Lake played in these conditions too. You know, Andres Gomez is Colombian. He's South American. Like, there's plenty of South American players in the Real Salt Lake team. It's not like this entire team was from Utah or Scandinavia or Russia or anywhere else where it snows a ton, right? Like, they live and play in Utah now, but it's not like these were Eskimos on the field. It's a tough one. Again, I know that it's tough to juxtapose the serious, like, thank God nobody got hurt, with like, well, these pictures and videos are pretty cool, right? Like, again, this happens very rarely. I love a good snow game. I understand where LAFC and Steve Cherundolo are coming from, but again, as a fan, I kind of love it. MLS 5-a-side number 4, stock up. Oh, Canada, CF Montreal and Toronto FC. And yes, I'm wearing my Knicks RJ Barrett jersey, because I need to get, shout out to Canada, he's Canadian. I need to get use out of this because this jersey arrived literally one day before he got traded from the Knicks. So I don't know what to do with it other than wear it when I'm talking about Canadian players and Canadian teams right now. Shout out Brampton, shout out Toronto, shout out RJ Barrett, shout out all the boys. Let's go Knicks, bing bong. So anyway, what you came here for. Montreal and Toronto have had excellent starts this season. Both teams haven't played a home game yet, but let's start with Montreal. They beat FC Dallas 2-1 on the road without Yankov and with Kokoro and Opoku going off injured during the game. That's 4 points from 2 road games to start the season under Laurent Courtois. They had 8 road points all of last year. It's a phenomenal start. They've been much more difficult to beat. They've been much more aesthetic as well, which those combinations usually don't go together. They want to play the ball on the ground. They're not at like the Wilfred Nancy like level of possession play because, you know, nobody else is. And just because Laurent Courtois is also French and also came from Columbus doesn't mean that like he's going to be, you know, a carbon copy of Wilfred Nancy. I really like the way they're playing. Again, a lot of these pieces fit together. I thought Mateusz Kokoro was very good before he got injured. His little unselfish layoff for the opening goal was delicate, delightful. I would love, like, I'm sure players love playing with a forward like that. Bryce Duke, again, Yankov, he didn't play today. Like, these players all make a ton of sense together. They have so much quality in the midfield. I think that they would hit another level if there was a way to get Victor Wanyama on the field. But Sam Piet and Mathieu Chouanier have been awesome together as the pairing at central midfield. Like, maybe you put Chouanier as a wingback on the left side or further forward now, particularly if Yankov and Kokoro can't play next week, and Opoku, obviously. But, like, they've been so good together. Like, I guess good news is Chouanier can play literally everywhere. But when Wanyama came onto the field against Dallas, like, I think that he would be the linchpin, the everything that puts this midfield together, and he would look a whole lot more like 2022 Victor Wanyama than 2023 Victor Wanyama, because this system fits him very, very well. We'll see how that goes. But I've been so impressed by Montreal to start the season. I've also been impressed by Toronto FC to start the season. Again, they went on the road, beat New England Revolution 1-0. They also have 4 points after 2 road games to start the season. They got a 0-0 draw at FC Cincinnati, reigning Supporters Shield winners last weekend, and this weekend they go to New England and beat them 1-0. It's really impressive how quickly this team has looked much better, much more difficult to beat everything else under John Herman. They're playing the 3-4-2-1 that I thought that they were going to play, but Bernadeschi as a wingback is not what I expected. He shifted into kind of a more attacking role after Insigne went off at halftime. I'm going to do this now. That was a planned sub, according to John Herman. Herdman said, and I quote, "We plan to bring him off at halftime. Lorenzo and Turf don't get along so well. We just have to manage that because he's magic. Like, they need him throughout the season." That's smart. That's well done. They haven't managed injuries very well over the past 6 years, honestly. Like, it hasn't just been one or two players. It's been a recurring pattern for Toronto. So it's good to see that John Herdman is speaking about that. Lorenzo Insigne had an awesome goal, the lone goal in this game. Look, Sean Johnson looked like the real Sean Johnson again in this game. He was incredible. The back line looks like Kevin Long looks really good. Raul Petretta looks better than he did last year. I've been taking shots at him all winter, so fair is fair. He's been much better. Richie Laryea didn't play as well. Matty Longstaff was just signed. Obviously, he hasn't played yet. This team might get better. Like, I don't know if it was overperformance because, again, against Cincy, they lost the XG battle. Same thing here, but game states have much more to do with it than anything else here. Plus, again, this team was getting shredded last year. You know what's much better than winning the XG battle? Winning the game, right? Like, you get the goal from Lorenzo Insigne on the road, and you pack it in. I don't blame them. Again, just them being combative towards the other team rather than combative towards themselves and the coaching staff is a huge marked improvement this year over last year. MLS 5-a-side number 5, stock down. NYCFC and the Colorado Rapids. Start with NYCFC. They got throttled, honestly, 2-0 by St. Louis. I don't think that the XG tells the story of this game. NYCFC, the big story here is they've scored no goals. They have 0 points. They're not creating a ton. Charlotte bottled them pretty good last week. St. Louis controlled this game, I thought, on the basis of it. Again, I know NYCFC had more possession, but I think St. Louis dominated more of the field tilt, everything else. James Sands got a red card. I can't imagine another MLS manager who's on a hotter seat than Nick Cushing is right now. Came into the season with a lot of critiques. He got the blessing of the front office, the club, but look, the results are the results. It hasn't been good enough over the last year and a half, and he needed a fast start. Silver lining, to spin it positive, 2 road games, 0 home games so far. It's difficult to get points on the road in this league. You got to win your home games. Their next one is at home, their home opener at Yankee Stadium, home to the Portland Timbers. Look, dude, it's stupid to call a must-win in Week 3 in MLS, and it's probably not a must-win for the club, but it might be a must-win for Nick Cushing. Like, it's only going to get hotter and hotter if they don't win, if they don't look good. They need to create more. They need to be better in the attacking third. They need to be more dangerous. They have a lot of talented young attackers. They're not getting enough out of them so far. It's just not been good enough. Colorado Rapids, better performance. A 1-1 draw against Nashville SC, but they drew at home to Nashville SC without Sam Surge and Hani Mukhtar with the CONCACAF Champions Cup game coming up this week. Got to be 3 points after the disappointing week 1 where they got murdered by Portland Timbers 4-1. It's a tough start. Colorado go on the road at Real Salt Lake. That's a really difficult fixture. Again, it's a rivalry game. Real Salt Lake are very good. Real Salt Lake are very good at home. Things might be getting tough. I thought that Colorado's big advantage of the offseason was that the pieces should have been in with long enough to train, to adapt, and hit the ground running. It hasn't been the case. Again, at home to Nashville without 2 of their 3 DPs, who have started the season really slow, that team as well, with a lot of fixture congestion. It's got to be 3 points, particularly when you're 1-0 up in the second half and Teal Bunbury scores at the end. It's a tough one for Colorado Rapids. And again, I think the pressure is going to be up. Again, I noted it last week, but Chris Armas, I think he was fired after 12 games in Toronto. Again, that managerial hire came with some criticism and everything else. It'd be very good for them to kind of turn things around pretty quickly, get more buy-in from the players, get the fans off their back, get everybody off their back. If this goes on for a little while without getting their first win, it's going to be really, really tough for the Rapids and Chris Armas. That'll do it for MLS 5-a-side Week 2. The games are coming thick and fast. We got CONCACAF Champions Cup this week. I can't wait for the Brandon Vasquez Cincinnati reunion as Rayados come to Cincy this week. I would have liked to be there, but plane tickets are ridiculous from New Jersey to Cincinnati/Kentucky. Whatever. Maybe we'll get lucky over the next few days. Miami enter the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well this week. There's a lot of good matchups. Again, like I said, Orlando Tigres. We got some more midweek soccer this week, and then next weekend into Week 3 of MLS. Vamos!